Rusalka, Dvořák.
Staatstheater Darmstadt. Premiere day.
It's premiere day!
It's premiere day!
Premiere day!
Premiere day, buddy!
I can't wait for this premiere.
Premiere day, baby!
Woo, it's finally here! Ah!
Gotta look good for Rusalka.
Jared, have you seen my sex, drugs, and opera underwear?
Which one?
The ones with the pygmy marmoset and ring-tailed lemur holding the hands in the bathtub. Where are they?
Mike! Where's my fanny pack? I can't go to the opera without my fanny pack!
You there, boy! Whoa, me, sir? Yes, you, fine lad. Go and buy me the biggest premiere day goose you can find here. And this should suffice. Blimey! I can't find the tickets anywhere. Did you...
Chill, man. I got the tickets right here.
Hey everybody, Jared Ice and Michael Pegger here from Sex, Drugs, and Opera. We're a podcast in Frankfurt, Germany. If you don't know us, please check out our stuff at sexdrugsandopera.com.
And we are here today at Staatstheater Darmstadt, here to see Louisa Kautz's production of Rusalka by Antonín Dvořák. It's also better known sometimes from its other version of
The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid.
No, of course, Rusalka was first, and Rusalka will be here in the end.
Rusalka forever, baby. Rusalka
Story,
forever.
of course, has a lot of similarities. The story starts with nature, as a lot of this mythology does from the time. You have basically this water gnome being played with these water sprites and these water nymphs. And one of these water sprites, Rusalka, she tells her father that she's fallen in love with a prince that comes swimming at the lake and wants to become human.
Bad idea.
Father says, I don't like it. There's a lot of bad stuff wrapped up with that. I would prefer you not to. But if you must, then there's a witch you can see.
Jezi Baba.
Jezi Baba.
Jezi Baba, what a name, baby.
And so Rusalka decides to go see this woman to be changed into a human. And on
But
the
first,
way,
she sings that beautiful...
Song to the Moon. One of the most beautiful pieces of music in this opera, in any opera literature, really.
Yep.
An incredibly beautiful piece of music. And after she sings a Song to the Moon, where she kind of talks about her love and her feelings and all these desires she has, she goes to the witch and gets changed into the human. You know the rules of the game, right? Can't talk to humans. If he doesn't love you back, it's going to go badly for you both.
It's going to go real bad.
And she says, I'm going to do it anyway.
And nothing's free in this world. There's
Nothing's
nothing
free.
free in this world. She's
No.
got to pay. What does
Gotta
she
pay.
pay? Her voice.
Her
Just
voice.
like the Little Mermaid.
She's not a singer, but she still pays with her voice. So, of course, you already know how it goes. The prince finds her, takes her back. After a week, grows tired of her because he feels like she's not giving him the affection that he wants, calls her cold. And, of course, whenever there's trouble, you got the foreign princess. You got the woman coming
Foreign
in.
princess coming in trying to woo him, and woo him she does.
And
she
whom
gets
she
him.
does. He rejects
She gets him.
Rusalka, and she goes back to the lake, destined to be a water demon, basically, living at the bottom of the lake, drawing men to their death. And her one way out is to have a dagger given to her by the witch, and she can kill the prince, where she throws the dagger in the water and says, no way, I'm not doing that.
The hell with that. I'm not doing it.
So, of course, some time goes by. The prince comes to find her. They kiss, even though they both know that it will result in his death. he goes to heaven, she goes down to the lake. It's not the happiest of endings. She's a water demon at the end of the thing.
To say
I
the
think the
least,
Little
dude.
Mermaid ends happy, but that's Hollywood. We're obviously very excited to see this, and one of the big parts of putting a story like this on stage is, of course, you have to have somebody who knows where these stories come from. How do you trace the Little Mermaid back to Rusalka, back to ancient Slavic folklore? And that's why theaters always have someone called a dramaturge.
Yeah, and in Darmstadt they have someone, Steffi Miskovsky, and she got to sit down with us, explain Darmstadt's take on the piece a little bit, what they're doing, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I got to have a nice time with Steffi. It was great. Check it out. So spring has officially sprung here in Darmstadt, which goes well with the story of Rusalka, when the little water nymphs would come out of the water and fertilize the ground for all the farmers there. And today we're having an interview with Steffi Miskovsky, a dramaturg here in the theater. Steffi, how you doing today?
I'm fine with that. Sunshine's brilliant.
The sunshine is brilliant. You happy we did it out here, right?
Oh, I'm so glad we did
And
it.
the only thing that can make it more sex, drugs, and opera is if we had a beer. But, you know, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, so we can't do that. Steffi, the idea of a dramaturg is not quite so defined in American opera culture. Can you tell us a little bit about what your role is in the theater here?
In terms of the production, you're on the one hand the first member of the audience, so you're there in every rehearsal or most of the rehearsals, and you feed the director with all kinds of information he or she might need in advance. So you provide the texts, you provide any information according to the needs, what is the background about, what is the relevance to the history, all that kind of
So
thing.
you're basically the scholar of the production.
Oh, well, you're a scholar, secretary, in every kind of way,
Everything.
helper.
And also sort of the first filter
Exactly.
of criticism of the piece.
Exactly. It's like trying out a new recipe, and you're the first guest who gets to try it, and you can tell your opinion
That is
right.
a great analogy. You are the taste tester of the opera
Exactly.
world. I like it. I like it, Stephanie. Tell me, so Rusalka is the theme for the day. The story of Rusalka, most people know it as the Little Mermaid. It's basically the Slavic version of the Little Mermaid. What sort of relevance does the story have to today's culture?
In Louise Kaut's view, our director, it's about a young woman who falls in love with a young prince or with a young man. And I think it's relevant to our society today because I think a lot of young girls have a vision of their perfect man, of their dream man, which doesn't necessarily correspond with the reality. So it's just a typical phenomenon of falling in love or first love. And she gets disappointed very cruelly and heavily, and she has to learn something. And in the end, she does. And despite the fact that everything goes wrong, of course, in the text, it's terrible because both die, or so Rusalka is damned. But nevertheless, she has had some insight, however bitter they might have been. And we hope that her next love will be a little bit more successful or more happy than this one.
Let's hope for Rusalka's sake it turns a little better than both dying, or him dying and her becoming an eternal hell demon dragging people into their watery death. I agree with you. Let's hope for Rusalka's sake that doesn't happen anymore. What sort of insights does the Darmstadt production offer?
We portray the prince as he is depicted in the story and the music. So despite the fact that he's called Prince, which is an archetype, he's not necessarily a fairy tale prince. That is to say, before we meet him, we hear in the music a kind of motive for the hunt, which could tell us about his person, about his character. He's very aggressive on the one hand, and his concept of love isn't necessarily that positive anyhow. He sees women as objects, and he doesn't necessarily believe in mutual love as in corresponding love, but he just wants to take whatever he wants. So he finds Rusalka, she can't talk, and he finds her attractive, sexually attractive, and he takes her with her. And when we meet them again in the second act, Rusalka has been with him for a week, but he finds her cold and doesn't experience the same kind of passion and same kind of happiness as he did when he first saw her and was attracted to her. So he reproaches her for being cold and distanced. And she can't help it, she can't explain it, and she can't in any way correspond to his signals, which are signals of sexual passion. So he just decides to leave her for another woman who can correspond with this concept of love, and Rusalka gets jilted.
You mentioned before that in the Darmstädter production that he ends up raping her. Is that true?
That is true, and that also stands for his inability to. He doesn't want to seduce her. He fails completely, but he just takes what he wants by force.
Is it right to say that this production takes in general a more feminist approach to the story?
I would say so, definitely, because in the end, the prince is longing for Rusalka. He's looking for her in the woods. He's going back where they first met. At the end of second act, the foreign princess leaves him as well. Rusalka leaves him. And for one reason or another, he's got this idea that Rusalka might save him. That's why we meet him in the third act when he's looking for her. And in that point in the story for Rusalka, there's no way back. She has seen that this love won't ever work, and she can't go back to having a relationship with him, despite the fact that he now wants her. And she leaves him at the end of third act, and our prince starts at the point where Rusalka started at the beginning of the story. So he's got this weird idea, an ideal of love, which she will never ever resolve, or which never ever fulfill, and she leaves him because she knows that this will never ever going to work.
Good for her. It seems like this guy's a taker. He's just a taker, huh?
He is, and he hasn't learned a bit.
But she has.
She has.
That's nice. I like to hear that. Tell me, he's a hunter. Of course, he's on the hunt at the beginning. White doe. Both times in the libretto that I read, he is going after a white doe. Why a white doe?
Well, white, the color of white, of course.
Albino. Doe.
It symbolizes the innocence. Of course, it's a young girl, so she hasn't had any experience in physical love whatsoever. It's her first contact with a man. And of course, a doe, in any kind of story, it's a creature which needs to be protected. They're innocent, they can't defend themselves, they are shy, they run away, and of course it's a perfect symbol for a young woman who's there and completely can't help herself and is just an object for us.
Was that the original libretto's intent?
Definitely, yes, of course, because she's in the woods, and as we portray her, she's even there in her undergarment, because she goes to the witch and she asks her to be turned into a woman. And of course, this is a metaphor for being sexually attractive, which she wouldn't be if she was a young girl, as in a child. So, of course, she needs the prince's attention, and that's, I think, very clear for everybody what that means.
Well, thank you for your time today. It was great spending some time here out in the sun with you.
Thank you.
That sounds really interesting, but you know what? Concepts are just concepts. In the end, you need singers to get up there and go on stage, and we're about to give you tonight's starting lineup cast.
Time for the SDAO rundown. So in the role of the Water Goblin tonight, we have Johannes Sakun Moon, studied at the Kyunghee University in Seoul. Seoul. Give it some soul, baby. And the Musikhochschule in Stuttgart. He's been a member of the Darmstadt Ensemble since 2017-2018 season, and his credentials happen to be the most difficult to pronounce tonight, so happy to see him sing.
Next up in the role of Yeji Baba, the sexy, sexy witch, is Elizabeth Hornung. Along with singing, she's a math whiz, a genuine math whiz.
Really? Okay.
She studied math along with singing at the universities in Poznan and Gdansk. Elizabeth is also a freshly crowned Kammersängerin, which is a highly sought-after official title in the German state theater system. And she just happens to be one of the most lovely ladies that I know.
My God, I didn't come here to feel bad about myself tonight. Mathematics and a Kammersängerin. My goodness. Okay, up next, we have also a Kammersängerin in her second appearance here on SDAO, Katrin Gerstenberger, in the role of the Foreign Princess. She studied in Weimar, has been a member of the ensemble here in Darmstadt for 26 years, Michael Pegger.
Oh, God. 26 years.
And while she makes a lovely princess, we saw her last time as the scary rich in the role of Eureka, so incredible the range she has. I'm excited to see her lovely side.
Next up, another nameless character, the Prince, done by Thorsten Büttner. Thorsten Büttner studied at the prestigious Mozarteum in Salzburg. He sings leading tenor roles all over Europe, and when he's not just knocking it out of the park on stage, you will oftentimes find him imbibing that beautiful golden liquid called whiskey. Ooh. He's a whiskey file. You should like that, Jared. Jared, here's a whiskey file, too.
Oh, my God. I love the whiskey. Push it down with Brown. All right. Next up, we have in one of the named roles, one of the few named roles in the opera, and not just any named role, the main role of this opera. We have Katrina Persika in the role of Rusalka. She, of course, is an accomplished concert and recital artist, frequent guest at the Bayreuther Festspiel. Ooh. And you know what? Sewing is also a major talent of hers. So if you need some surgery or something like that, I'm sure she could jump in and sew you up.
And rounding up the rest of the cast is Julian Olleshausen as the hunter, Keith Bernard Stoneham as the gamekeeper, Xiao Yishu as the kitchen boy, another pants role. She's beautiful. And the three wood sprites, Rebecca Reiser, Gundula Schulte, and Maren Favela, along with the Staatsorchester of Darmstadt and the wonderful chorus of Staatstheater Darmstadt.
And of course, what all these singers have in common is they sing in Darmstadt, which of course is a lovely city. You could translate Darmstadt into English as, I guess, colon city.
Colon City, but the place it's not a shitty place.
It's not
we
a
got
shitty
to
place
check
at
it
all.
out, actually. It's an amazing place. You don't really, I never had learned about it before I came here. For instance, did you know this, Jared?
Yes, tell me. Lay it on me.
6 elements were discovered in Darmstadt. 6 different elements. I don't know if I can do them all, but there's Darmstadium. Go
Hilarious.
figure. Very, very inventive people naming these things.
Darmstadium.
There's Boreum after Niels Bohr.
Okay,
There's
I like it.
Copernican.
No.
Copernicum after
Copernicus.
After Copernicus. Very good, Jared. And then there were also other elements discovered in other places that were then verified here, which in the scientific process, you discover something and then other scientists check it. Wait, did they get all that right? Yes, they did. They got it right.
Yeah.
Darmstadium. And that happened at a particle accelerator that's actually just right outside of town here.
Oh, really?
It's really amazing. Also, one of the oldest pharmaceutical companies in the world, Merck, or Merck as we say in English, is also located here. It's the city's biggest employer. So science is happening. It's happening here
And
in
you got
Darmstadt.
the ESA?
Right?
Right?
That's right, of course. The European Space Agency is here. It's just amazing. The whole Central Command. So in NASA, whenever they say, everything's a go, Houston, they really say here, everything's a go, Darmstadt, and they blast off into space.
But it's not all just science. Of course, science is a big part of the history of Darmstadt, but it has a lot of artistic history,
That's
of
right.
course.
That's right.
Darmstadt is a very relevant city throughout the history of art and music and culture. And there was a very famous composer, a very influential composer at the time named Christoph Graupner here. And he was an important composer in the time of Bach. And actually, even though he was employed in Darmstadt, he was pursuing a job in Leipzig as a cantor and got the job. But they liked him so much in Darmstadt, they didn't want him to go. And they offered him such a sweet deal that he stayed. And you know who followed him up, of course.
All about the Benjamins, baby. Or all about the euros. Those sweet, sweet euros.
Whoever was on the Deutsche Marks back then.
Whoever was on the money back then, they offered him more of that person.
And who took
he
this
stayed.
job in Leipzig, of course, was Bach. Right? And in his life, Graupner, of course, said, you have a great musician in Bach, proud of it. So a lot of artistic and scientific history here in Darmstadt.
Also, the whole movement of Jugendstil, or the German Art Nouveau, the center of the German Art Nouveau was here in Darmstadt. There's a place in Darmstadt called the Mathildenhöhe, which was actually an artist colony where everybody in this Jugendstil, all these designers in that style, they all lived, they built their homes, and there was an artist colony there. After the war, a lot of that was destroyed, but art was such an important thing in Darmstadt that they re-established the artist colony, and they would offer free housing and free studio space to any artist who was willing to come and work here in Darmstadt. So the new music scene after the Second World War actually thrived in Darmstadt.
That's a great deal.
Yeah.
Let me in on that deal.
Yeah. Seriously, give me some studio space. I'll move to wherever the hell you want me to move.
So we were all over the city of Darmstadt, and Mike found us an inventive ride to get around the city. So
Man, if I could have one.
it was a good time, so check it out. You'll like this.
And where is Mike? Man, sweet ride. Where did you get this thing?
I know a guy. So we started our day at Georg-Büchner-Platz, where you can find the Staatstheater Darmstadt. Also on the Platz is the St. Ludwig-Kirche. It's a Catholic church with a dome with amazing acoustics. Also on the plaza you find the sculpture called Grande Disco by the Italian sculptor Arnaldo Pomodoro. And it's an interactive sculpture which gives people something to do while they're watching the concerts, which you oftentimes find at Georg-Büchner-Platz.
So after spending some time playing with giant discs at the theater, we got back in our little weird car and made our way to the highest point in Darmstadt, the Mathildenhöhe.
The ruling family in Darmstadt had a lot of ties to the Russian royal family, which is why in 1897 this Russian chapel was built on the Mathildenhöhe.
When the weather's nice, you can often find the people of Darmstadt spending their free time at the Mathildenhöhe. There's artwork outside, lots of things to look at, and people always notice something new.
What did you get for an anniversary present this year? In the early 1900s, Ernst Ludwig got this tower, which is known as the Wedding Tower. Today, you can still get married in the tower. It was given to him to commemorate his 5th anniversary, which is why you see the 5 points, and it's also called the Five-Finger Tower.
The ESA, or the European Space Agency, is located in Darmstadt. Darmstadt is known as a Wissenschaftsstadt, or a city of science, because of its scientific institutions, universities, and high-tech companies. The ESA is home to over 800 employees, and in 2011, the ESA announced the first phase of the ESOC-2 Modernization and Expansion Project, valued at $60 million. It will now be known as the European Space Operations Center. After spending some time looking around at the ESA, we got back in our car and went to the Innenstadt, or the inner city, the downtown of Darmstadt. Darmstadt has a population of just under 160,000 people, and when people want to do their shopping or just spend time in the city, you can often find them in the inner city. The name Darmstadt first appears towards the end of the 11th century. Darmstadt holds a lot of history in music and politics. In Darmstadt, like many German cities, if you want to do shopping, eat ice cream, have coffee, or meet your friends, the inner city is where you do it.
In the heart of the Innenstadt, downtown in Darmstadt, you will find Luisenplatz, which is a hub for many students who take public transportation or anybody else who wants to get from one point in the city to another.
Darmstadt has theater dating back to the early 1700s. This particular theater was built in 1972 and has two main stages. The big house can seat 1,000 people, and the small house seats just under 500.
And of course, after a long day in Darmstadt and a night at the theater, you want to end up in the theater's bar, a great place to grab a drink after the show.
Is this really the story of The Little Mermaid, Jared?
What do you mean?
I mean, I think this has really its roots in something else. It has its roots in Slavic myth. And we could really basically say this isn't The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid is this.
No, of course.
That's
The Little
probably
Mermaid
the better.
And
That's
Rusalka,
probably
of course,
the better way
came
of saying
from
it.
older stories,
So
right?
the Rusalki. So I don't know if you knew this, but Rusalka.
It's not a name.
It's not a name.
No.
It's actually just it's like saying The Little Mermaid, which
Yeah,
that's kind of what they
Her
did in
name's
The Little
Mermaid. It's not a mermaid. They're water sprites.
Right.
Basically, water nymphs.
And this,
but that's just what they're called. They're just called Rusalka, Rusalki if you got more than one.
And this myth predates Christianity by a long time. It started as they weren't feared at all. These were actually, the Rusalki were known as symbols of fertility. Once a year, it was thought that these water nymphs would come out of the water and provide moisture to the ground. So the farmers, they actually exalted in the return of the Rusalki
They were
every
good
year.
people.
Absolutely.
They liked them.
And, you know, they would say, oh, I can hear them in the waters. And it was this myth that had this beautiful idea to it. But then, what happened?
Yeah, of course, after Christianity, after many, many years, then they started being viewed as actually very bad spirits. They were thought to be kind of the souls of women who either killed themselves to get out of a bad marriage or women who committed suicide for some other reason. And basically they became demons who hung out at the bottom of a lake and lured men to their death. And this is still the belief of it today. In a lot of Slavic countries, you still have this Rusalka week. A week,
really?
A week where you don't go in the water, a week where you leave things at willow trees, and you kind of respect the fact that if you go in the water, you might get dragged to your death.
What, are they leaving like food and stuff, or
the willow
young
trees.
men? Are they tying young men to the trees and hoping they drag
No,
them
they're
down?
trying to save the young men. If you're a young man, you don't go near the water during
Yeah,
this
but that's
week.
what, if you have a young man in Slavic lands and you want to get rid of him, that's a good time to do it.
Yeah,
just tie him to a willow tree and they'll just suck him right down
Don't
to the
follow
water.
the singing in the water.
Don't do it.
Oldest
Don't
trick in the
do
book.
it. Old trick.
But this is very interesting because in Dvořák's opera, he actually takes the character through this journey. She goes from being basically a good spirit, a fertile spirit, and she goes to being then more of this evil spirit, the spirit that draws people to this death, eventually killing the prince, of course. And it's a story that it stands the test of time. This idea of a woman falling in love with a man, basically not giving it up and being rejected because of that, that's a big feministic plot that you can find in many movies today.
Yep.
And when you take an opera and you translate it to today's time, over 100 years later after it was written, of course the myth dates back much more than 100 years. The words are stuck, the music's stuck, so what can you change? You can change how it looks. You can change the costumes. You can change the time period. You can change the visual aspect of the opera. And, of course, the best way to do that is props.
Man, props. And I'll tell you.
Got to give them props.
Give them props for that. Give Darmstadt props for their props department. We got the keys down to the cellar where they keep all those props. I don't know if I'll be going back there anytime soon.
It was a scary journey, but we did it for you, so I hope you appreciate it. Check it out.
Mike? This place is a labyrinth, man. Mike, Jesus Christ, man.
Right down here.
All right.
Right down here.
You scared me, dude.
I'm sorry.
Scary enough down here. This place is a maze.
I hear it.
Here we go, man. Requisita, props. Oh, this is awesome.
You know, dude, I kind of heard this place is haunted.
What, you believe in ghosts?
No, I don't believe in ghosts, but you...
Oh, Mike! 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 God, Mike! Oh my God! Mike! Mike!
Jared! Jared!
Mike! Mike! Oh! Oh God! Mike! 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 Mike, is that you? Oh, cow! Mike! Oh, Mike, it's me! It's Jeremy! Jeremy Ice! Mike! I'm in the land of curses, Mike! Bird cages! I see bird cages!
Jared! Jared!
I thought I'd lost you forever, Michael. I thought I'd lost you forever. The wreck was eaten. I looked everywhere for you, Michael, but I need you. I need you, Michael. You're half of SDAO. I need you. Mike, my little Mike. My little Michael Beggar. So, Jared Ice and Michael Beggar here from Sex, Drugs, and Opera. We're looking at the prop department today, and we're... Mike? What are you doing?
Nothing. Who's that?
Oh, that's nothing, man. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing. So, you ready to do this or what?
Did I hear you say Michael Beggar?
No. Let's do it.
Let's see some props.
Okay, let's do it.
In the props department, they have everything you could possibly need on the stage. Look at all the instruments they just have sitting around. Real instruments. And it's all categorized by strings, winds, guitar. And then you'd walk 3 steps further, and you have every kind of dish you might want. Look at these. See, these are something that I might have in my own house. They're really nice.
These prop departments have to be very organized. I mean, you have a giant fruit section to the prop department. Look at the size of that banana. Huh? Giant big heads, wedding cakes, a box full of lobsters, huh? Everything you could need. Normal fruit, bread, meat, alcohol. The alcohol section, of course. These prop departments are endless. So these prop departments, of course, are not all just creepy things. Sometimes you have beautiful things like the flowers.
Die Blumen.
But of course, it's not all beauty. Sometimes you gotta have that creepy stuff here. Look at that. So of course, when we're watching opera, what we hear, the music from the orchestra, the singers, is obviously an extremely important part. But don't underestimate how important it is what we're seeing on the stage.
Everything on stage is important, and if somebody's trying to play with a genie, then you need a goddamn lamp.
Yeah, for something to be believable, authentic, to really bring the storytelling to the last level, to the highest level, you gotta have a good props department, a good collection, and good organization.
Man, they got a collection here. Look, if you need that kind of lamp, they freaking got it.
Anything you can find back here. So make sure you thank your props person today.
Dvořák is one of my favorite composers.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. The Ninth Symphony is just amazing, dude.
Yeah, the man had a very long career, very respected career, and he, of course, was a Czech composer, and you can hear this in his music. Lots of Czech folk music in his music, and that's, of course, because he was born and grew up there.
Yeah, a lot of composers did that. Smetana was into it. Janacek and Dvořák, they were all very into Slavic folk music, and they incorporated a lot of that into their music.
Yeah, and in his childhood, of course, Dvořák had the opportunity to study German, right? He wasn't just Czech; he had an opportunity studying German.
That's right. In that time, the Czechoslovakia, including Prague, was actually part of that empire,
Right.
and it was just a part of it that spoke a different language. And when he was young, his father eventually sent him to go live with an uncle who was a German-speaking uncle, and that way he was able to learn the German language as well.
Right, and he also studied music, and he studied language, and eventually he landed himself spot playing viola in the Prague Symphony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prague Orchestra. And this is great because he, as a young composer, didn't really have the chance to buy concert tickets. And so through this job, he was influenced by Mozart and Wagner and all the other big influential composers of the time.
Why didn't he just listen to it on Spotify or YouTube or something like that?
I mean, I guess the guy didn't have good Wi-Fi out there
Man,
in
seriously,
Prague.
that
but
Wi-Fi in Prague can be hard sometimes.
it was tough back then, but he was there playing this stuff, and so he had an inside view. So he got all this insight, and in his 30s, then he started submitting his compositions to a competition.
That's right. And in one of those competitions was a little-known composer named Johannes Brahms.
You ever heard of him?
Yeah, you heard of him? No, and Brahms was absolutely enamored with his music.
Yeah.
I don't even think he won that. No, that year he did not win that competition, but Brahms knew he should have.
Yeah, I think later he won it a couple times.
Yeah, 2 years after that, he won it.
But Brahms was a huge supporter of Dvořák, and he pushed his career until the day he died, until Brahms died. He was a huge supporter of Dvořák, even inviting him to come to Vienna, and said basically, my fortune is your fortune at one point. Dvořák eventually, after a fair amount of years composing music and playing music, found himself a job as a professor in Prague. And after doing this for a while as an educator, he then found his way to America.
That's the interesting part of my life. Of his life. You never imagine these composers, these great composers, spending any time in America. You know,
No.
We just have us Americans. We have a couple of composers that we can latch onto.
Right.
But these greats. When I first learned that he was at the National Conservatory in New York as a professor, it blew me away. That's actually, and that's where he got his influences in American music.
Right. I mean, that was his goal in going to America, is he wanted to study the American music and take in as much of that as he could, which I respect in itself, being that open. And the school he worked at, it's worth noting that at the time it was very rare that they had African Americans, women, and men all studying at the school at the same time.
They also had women at the school.
Yeah.
See, that's amazing.
And this is late 19th century, so this was a very rare thing at the time. This was great. And Dvořák, actually, in his time in America, wrote a few articles about the American music scene and how he thought African American music and Native American music was the key for America finding its musical identity.
Right.
And very interesting that he wrote this stuff. And in his time there, he also met Harry Burleigh, which was one of the first African American composers, and he introduced Dvořák to African spirituals and this aspect of music. He brought this back to the Czech Republic with him, to Prague, when he wrote Rusalka, which was his 9th opera. He wrote it. It premiered in 1901, and he died 3 years later. So it was the culmination of all these life experiences he's had was found in this opera.
Is there much American music in Rusalka?
I mean, you hear influence of his Czech music, you hear influences of his time in America.
Wagner, I hear.
But you, of course, hear Wagner. Dvořák was a huge fan of Wagner. He actually played an orchestra that Wagner conducted.
Did he?
And he said, he was noted as saying, I'm a huge fan of Wagner. So it's not even hearsay, it's fact.
Did he say it in those words?
Yeah, he said.
He's like, man, Wagner's the shit.
I think he said he floats my boat. But I'm not saying Czech. But yeah, basically, he was a big fan, and Mike and I, we can't wait to hear what Darmstadt's orchestra is going to do with this tonight. And just so you're not left out, we actually got a clip of some of the opera that you can see. So we hope you enjoy it. Check out the clip, and we'll check in with you after the opera. Okay, everybody, so we just wrapped up the end of the show here, and I had a good time. Mike, how was your time?
I had a pretty good time too, dude. The singers, they really got exactly what they. I mean, they all had the colors that they had to have, and it matched. They matched the colors of the orchestra also, which is really important in a piece like this because Dvořák is all about those colors, those dark, beautiful blues and purples, baby.
It's super interesting because they, of course, sang it in German tonight, not in the original Czech, but still they found the color that matched.
Problematic because the Betonung, or the emphasis in Czech, is always on the first syllable, and it's always composed that way. So whenever you do a translation in German, very, very difficult to make the music fit the words and have the right sort of syntax in the sentence. I actually thought the translation fit pretty well, and I understood a lot of it.
I thought it was great. And at the end there, they had, of course, her father singing, and they put an effect on it. I'm a fan of when they do effects in operas, and they had this sound where it sounded like he was singing through water. Right?
Yeah,
and
I'm a fan of that singer, So Kun Moon.
Fantastic. He did a fantastic job tonight.
Man. Great
and they also
job.
blended that again with video then. They had video of her in the water, and the set was made to look like we were underwater. They had swinging chains, things falling from the ceiling that looked like floating material in the water, and then, of course, video of actual water. And it just brought out the fact that Dvořák was able to get this water sound out of his music. He was able to kind of create an environment that sounded like we were underwater.
That's what I was saying about earlier I mentioned the influence of Wagner.
Yeah.
You can tell it reminded me of the beginning of Rheingold.
Yeah,
the
totally.
sort of the waves of water that were going on.
Yeah.
I got to make a confession, though.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that he was, like, on the verge of death sick.
Yeah, the prince. You're the prince, you mean?
Yeah, the prince.
When he comes to Rusalka at the end.
I got to say, him going and getting a kiss that'll kill him, that's just like euthanasia.
It softens the blow a bit. I mean, the guy's dying
bad.
anyway.
What? He's gonna die anyway. He might as well die and get a kiss.
Yeah, that's true.
When I saw that again, I'm like, oh, okay.
It's kind of a good deal.
I would do it too.
Because he gets to go to heaven, right?
He gets to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Listen to this, Prince.
Yeah.
He gets to go to heaven. He gets to get that kiss.
Yeah.
That'll kill him.
Spend
but
time
he's
with the other
dying
woman.
anyway.
The guy got it all. Took it all.
That guy kind of came out on top at the end of this opera. I gotta say. And where does she go? She goes back down into the damn depths of
Well,
of hell.
and like you said, I mean, you really had this water music at the end. He really did this painting that he got, this Wagner influence, but also motifs, right? A few motifs in there, but this ability to create a soundscape
Right.
that eventually found its way later into film scores and stuff, not that much after this, was really great. I mean, this is an opera that was, of course, composed in 1901, but really didn't get international exposure until really the 90s.
That's what
You know,
the
you had
first
the Met do it in
performance.
the
The
90s.
first, yeah, exactly. The Met did it in '94, I think it was, for
Right,
the
right,
first
right.
time, which is crazy. I was alive in 1994.
Yeah,
Kerry
sure.
Collins was the quarterback of Penn State in 1994. They won the national championship.
Of course we
it's
all knew
crazy.
that,
I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
But its first, you say that's late. Its first performance in the United States at all was only in the '70s.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, that's really crazy.
Yeah, and now we're in Darmstadt, so the piece is definitely spread. But if you've never seen the piece, of course, check it out. And as we said in the last one, it's always great to see live theater because the one time you see Rusalka, it will not necessarily be the same the second time.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
If you're more interested in us talking about it, we actually did a full podcast on Rusalka. You can find it, of course, at sexdrugsandopera.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Spotify, Libsyn, iTunes, everywhere you can.
Google us, you'll find us.
Google us, you'll find us. You can and sexdrugsandopera.com. You can also, and you should also, go to the website of the Staatstheater Darmstadt. That's www.staatstheater-darmstadt.de.
Right.
And check out the rest of their season and next season. The next season is now out. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, of course, this is the premiere of
Interesting stuff.
Rusalka, so of course, if you want a chance to see it, you can still see the show. You can find Darmstadt also on Facebook, Instagram, and all the other social media channels. So look for us. We'll be doing more of these. And Mike, you enjoy yourself?
I loved it.
Good. Okay. See you next time.